You pull up to a gas station on a Tuesday morning. The oversized LED sign towering over the intersection reads $3.11 per gallon. Every single pump on the forecourt is occupied. A line of SUVs and commercial pickup trucks idles impatiently, waiting for an open bay. Hundreds of gallons of volatile liquid are flowing through rubber hoses every few minutes. You do the quick mental arithmetic. 10 pumps, 30 cars an hour, thousands of gallons a day. At $3 a gallon, this single corner property must be pulling in millions of dollars in top-line revenue every quarter. You whisper to yourself that the guy who owns this joint must be the richest individual in the zip code, driving whatever sports car he wants and quietly printing wealth while sleeping. Here is the brutal, unvarnished truth. Almost every single assumption you just made standing beside that pump is dead wrong. The gas station you are staring at, the one where money seemingly flows as fast as fuel through a nozzle, does not exist in the real world of commercial finance. The actual business operating beneath that glowing canopy is vastly stranger, radically more complex, and far more fragile than any. And here is the ultimate punchline that catches almost every novice investor off guard. The fuel you are pumping into your vehicle is essentially a zero-profit distraction. To the sophisticated operators who build, buy, and scale these properties, gasoline is nothing more than a hyper-expensive, high-risk loss leader, a gigantic, flashing advertisement designed for one single purpose: to trick you into parking your car, walking through those glass doors, and handing over $4 for a paper cup of hot coffee. Welcome to the brutal economics of owning an American gas station. Before you write a single check or submit a commercial loan application, you must grasp one fundamental structural reality. Not all gas station owners actually own the same underlying asset. If you walk into 10 different gas stations across the United States, you might be looking at 5 completely distinct business models and legal arrangements. And the specific model you choose determines every single dollar of gross margin, operational liability, and net profit you will ever see. The first model is the fully independent owner. This is the absolute holy grail of operational freedom and maximum financial risk. An independent owner holds fee-simple title to the land underneath the concrete, owns the building, owns the pumps, owns the buried underground fuel tanks, and owns the convenience store inside. They purchase unbranded fuel from whichever wholesale terminal offers the lowest daily rate and retain every single penny of net income after paying operating costs. You get absolute control over pricing, product mix, and store layout. But when a multi-thousand-dollar turbine pump fails or an environmental leak occurs, there is no corporate mothership coming to rescue your balance sheet. The second model is the franchise operator. These are the household corporate behemoths you see along interstate corridors: Shell, BP, ExxonMobil, and Chevron. As a franchise owner, you pay a substantial upfront franchise fee, typically ranging from $30,000 to $50,000, just for the privilege of bolting their iconic logo onto your canopy. On top of that, you pay ongoing monthly royalty fees calculated as a percentage of your total top-line sales. In exchange, you secure instant nationwide brand recognition, massive corporate marketing campaigns, and a guaranteed fuel supply during regional supply crunches. The trade-off? You are bound by ruthless, non-negotiable corporate operating guidelines that dictate everything from the exact uniforms your cashiers wear to the precise layout of the snack aisles. The third setup is the corporate-owned, corporate-operated model, known in commercial real estate circles as COCO. In this structure, a major oil corporation or a mega convenience chain like 7-Eleven or Circle K owns the real estate, the underground infrastructure, and the retail store. They hire a salaried store manager and hourly employees to staff the counters. The person standing behind the register is not an entrepreneur taking equity risk. They are a corporate employee drawing a W-2 paycheck while corporate headquarters in Texas or Ohio absorbs every dollar of capital risk and collects all the net income. The fourth structure is the dealer-operated station. Here, the oil company or a large fuel distributor owns the land and the physical building, but leases the retail operations to an independent dealer. The dealer runs the day-to-day store operations, pays monthly commercial rent to the oil company, and is contractually locked into buying 100% of their wholesale fuel directly from that landlord at predetermined prices. You get the operational autonomy of running a store, but your wholesale fuel margins are completely handcuffed by your landlord's pricing schedule. Finally, there is the lease operator running under a triple net lease, or NNN contract. In this arrangement, an institutional real estate investor or private equity syndicate owns the land and building purely as an income-producing asset. The operator leases the entire facility and assumes every single operational expense imaginable. Under a true triple net contract, the tenant pays the base monthly rent, all real estate property taxes, all commercial building insurance, and all ongoing structural maintenance on the pumps and underground systems. The real estate investor sits back on a beach in Florida collecting a guaranteed monthly dividend check, while you, the operator, carry every drop of daily operational risk, labor volatility, and inventory loss. Suppose you decide to acquire an existing gas station. You think you are simply buying a few metal pumps and a digital cash register. You are utterly mistaken. What you are actually buying is a massive, highly regulated underground industrial warehouse. You are acquiring 3 giant underground storage tanks buried beneath 4 feet of reinforced concrete, each holding anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 gallons of highly volatile, flammable liquid fuel. You are buying the secondary containment piping, the submersible turbine pumps, the automated tank gauging electronics, the massive steel canopy bolted deep into bedrock to withstand hurricane-force winds, the commercial walk-in beer coolers, the point-of-sale network, and thousands of units of retail inventory lining the shelves. You are also buying a dense web of government regulatory licenses, state fuel dealer permits, lottery terminal operating licenses, municipal liquor sales licenses, and stringent environmental containment permits tied specifically to that parcel of land. Furthermore, you inherit existing long-term fuel supply contracts that can bind you to rigid wholesale pricing structures for up to 15 years, whether those terms suit your business model or not. What most novice buyers completely fail to comprehend is that the physical infrastructure hidden under the asphalt is frequently worth far more than the retail buildings sitting on top of it. Building that underground fuel system from scratch costs hundreds of thousands of dollars and requires endless months of municipal zoning hearings, soil testing, and environmental permitting. This immense friction creates a massive barrier to entry. Money alone will not build a gas station. You need time, structural engineering, and exhaustive government clearance. This is precisely why existing, fully operational gas stations command purchase prices anywhere from $500,000 to over $25 million, depending heavily on daily vehicle traffic, physical footprint, store volume, and real estate ownership. If you simply take over an existing lease, your absolute minimum entry capital is roughly $250,000 to $300,000. That covers your landlord's security deposit, initial working capital, business licensing, and the initial tanker load of fuel inventory needed just to open the pumps. If you choose to build a brand new, ground-up gas station with a modern convenience store, the capital requirements escalate at a terrifying pace. Prime commercial land at a high-traffic suburban intersection will run between $500,000 and $2 million just for the raw dirt. Construction of the store building and overhead canopy consumes another $1 to $3 million. Installing the underground storage tanks, double-walled piping, leak detection systems, and concrete forecourt pads requires $300,000 to $750,000 in direct engineering costs. Interior store fit-outs, including walk-in refrigeration units, food preparation kitchens, security camera grids, and register terminals tack on another $250,000 to $1 million. Environmental impact studies and permit filings add $100,000 to $400,000 before a single drop of fuel ever touches a customer's vehicle. A modern, ground-up gas station build easily demands $2 million to $5 million in upfront capital expenditures. Commercial lending institutions know these numbers intimately. They will subject your business plan to brutal underwriting scrutiny, requiring third-party traffic studies, environmental site assessments, and ironclad proof of debt service coverage ratios. If your projected net operating income cannot comfortably cover your monthly principal and interest payments with a wide safety buffer, the bank will flatly reject your commercial loan application before you ever break ground. To understand why retail fuel profit margins are microscopic, you must follow the journey of a single gallon of gasoline long before it reaches your vehicle's tank. The journey originates deep underground in an oil field. Crude oil is extracted from the earth and transported via high-pressure pipelines or massive oceanic tankers to a petroleum refinery. At the refinery, thermal cracking processes transform raw crude into finished commercial fuels, regular unleaded, premium high-octane gasoline, and ultra-low-sulfur diesel. Once refined, these finished products move through interstate pipeline networks to regional wholesale distribution terminals, known across the energy industry simply as the rack. At the rack, massive 18-wheeler fuel tanker trucks pull up to automated loading racks, pumping approximately 8,000 to 10,000 gallons of fuel into their compartments per trip, before making overnight deliveries to retail stations across the region. Every single leg of this supply chain, crude extraction costs, refining margins, pipeline tariffs, terminal handling fees, and truck driver wages, adds a layer of cost that gets tacked onto the price delivered to the station operator. How a station owner purchases that fuel depends entirely on whether they operate as a branded or unbranded dealer. A branded dealer operating under the flag of Shell, ExxonMobil, or Chevron buys fuel based on what is known as the Dealer Tank Wagon Price, or DTW. The DTW price includes an embedded premium that pays for national television marketing, proprietary detergent additive packages like Techron or V-Power, and a contractually guaranteed supply priority if a hurricane or refinery outage shuts down regional pipelines. The trade-off is total entrapment. The branded dealer is legally bound to purchase fuel exclusively from that single supplier under long-term contracts lasting 10 to 15 years. An unbranded dealer, by contrast, shops the open commodity market, buying fuel directly off the rack price, published daily by energy pricing agencies. The rack price is almost always cheaper than the branded DTW price, allowing unbranded operators to undercut local corporate competitors on retail pricing. But the unbranded operator lives on a volatile financial knife edge. When global crude prices spike or a major regional refinery suffers an unpredicted explosion, rack prices swing wildly within hours. More critically, during a widespread supply shortage, oil majors fulfill their branded contractual obligations first. Unbranded dealers are immediately cut off at the terminal, leaving their pumps completely dry while their branded competitors across the street continue pumping fuel. Now let us perform a forensic autopsy on that $3.11 gallon of gasoline you just bought. When you look at the digital readout on the dispenser, you might assume the gas station owner is pocketing a fat, healthy cut of that transaction. Let us dissect where every single cent actually flows before the station owner even touches a penny. First comes the crude oil itself. At current market valuations, raw crude represents roughly 60% of the total price at the pump. That means approximately $1.86 out of your $3.11 purchase goes directly to international oil markets and drilling operators before the fuel is even processed. Refining, chemical processing, and additive blending consume another 9%, eating up roughly 28 cents per gallon. Next comes the non-negotiable tax bite from local and federal governments. The United States federal government levies a fixed, flat excise tax of 18.4 cents on every single gallon of gasoline sold in America, regardless of whether fuel prices are soaring or crashing. On top of that, individual states add their own heavy tax burdens. California levies 89.3 cents per gallon in combined state excise taxes and environmental fees. Illinois follows closely behind at 84.8 cents. Even low-tax jurisdictions like Texas demand around 40 cents per gallon. On average, the typical American motorist pays between 50 and 60 cents per gallon purely in state and federal taxes, money collected by the station owner at the register and handed directly over to government treasuries. Distribution, pipeline transport, and truck freight swallow another 11%, or roughly 34 cents per gallon, to cover the logistics of moving liquid fuel from terminal racks to underground tanks. Then comes a hidden financial parasite that most consumers never consider: credit card processing fees. Roughly 85% of all retail fuel purchases in the United States are paid for with plastic credit or debit cards. Every time a customer swipes or taps a card at the pump, credit card processing networks like Visa and MasterCard charge the station owner an interchange fee ranging from 1.5 to 3.5% of the gross transaction value. At $3.11 per gallon, that credit card swipe fee drains approximately 8 cents per gallon straight out of the station owner's pocket. When you add up crude oil, refining, federal taxes, state taxes, transportation, freight, and credit card swipe fees, what is left for the station owner? The nationwide average gross fuel margin sits at roughly 30 to 35 cents per gallon before paying a single overhead expense. According to official industry data published by the Oil Price Information Service, the national average fuel gross margin settled at 35.7 cents per gallon. Now, subtract the station's operational overhead, hourly cashier wages, electricity to run high-voltage canopy lighting, commercial property insurance, equipment repair reserves, and municipal licenses. The final net profit remaining on a gallon of gasoline drops to a razor-thin 10 to 15 cents per gallon. If your station pumps 100,000 gallons of fuel in a month, you generate $10,000 to $15,000 in net fuel profit. That sounds decent until you realize that number is before your monthly bank mortgage payment, before property taxes, and before environmental compliance reserves. And here is a mind-bending mathematical reality that perfectly illustrates this industry. The commercial bank that issued the credit card you swiped at the pump routinely earns more profit per gallon in credit card swipe fees than the station owner who bought the land, buried the steel tanks, and took all the financial risk earns in actual net profit. That is not an exaggeration. It is the fundamental math of energy retail. This microscopic profit margin explains why gas station owners are hopelessly obsessed with their competitors' pricing boards. Consumer research conclusively proves that a price difference of as little as 3 to 5 cents per gallon is more than enough to drive the vast majority of price-sensitive commuters straight past your forecourt and into a competitor's station across the street. Gasoline is one of the most price-transparent retail commodities on Earth. Drivers can read your competitor's price board from 200 yards away while traveling at 45 miles per hour. If one station drops its price by 4 cents to steal volume, surrounding stations are forced to match it immediately, collapsing gross margins across the entire commercial corridor. This hyper-competitive environment creates an asymmetric pricing phenomenon that energy economists refer to as rockets and feathers. When wholesale crude oil or rack prices rise, retail pump prices fly up immediately like a rocket because station owners operating on razor-thin margins cannot afford to absorb wholesale losses for even a single day. But when wholesale commodity prices drop, retail pump prices drift down agonizingly slowly, like a feather floating in the wind. Station owners deliberately hold retail prices high for as long as market competition allows, desperately trying to rebuild the thin cash reserves they lost during the previous wholesale price surge. It is not corporate greed, it is a brutal survival tactic in a low-margin industry. Now we arrive at the central financial pivot that turns this entire business model on its head. If pumping gas produces razor-thin margins and immense environmental risk, why does anyone invest millions of dollars to own a gas station? Because fuel is merely the hook that gets a driver to park their vehicle. The real business, the engine that generates massive high-margin cash flow, is operating inside the convenience store. Official financial data from the National Association of Convenience Stores tells a shocking story. In recent fiscal reporting, fuel sales accounted for a staggering 67.3% of total top-line revenue for the average American convenience store. However, that same massive volume of fuel contributed only 38.6% of total gross profit. By sharp contrast, retail merchandise inside the store, coffee, energy drinks, salty snacks, cold beverages, prepared food, and lottery tickets generated only 35% of top-line revenue, but delivered an astonishing 61.2% of total gross profit. Read those figures again and let the structural reality sink in. More than 6 out of every 10 profit dollars earned at a modern American gas station come from inside the retail building, not from the fuel pumps outside. The reason for this dramatic disconnect boils down to gross profit margins. While fuel yields a gross margin hovering around 11%, inside store merchandise delivers gross margins ranging from 30 to over 50%, depending on the product category. Consider the unit economics of everyday convenience items. A single aluminum can of soda costs the store operator roughly 40 cents wholesale and sells at the register for $2 a gross margin, exceeding 75%. A bag of potato chips costing 25 cents wholesale retails for $1.50, yielding an 83% gross margin. Cigarettes carry slim profit margins because tobacco manufacturers exercise tight pricing controls, but they serve as a powerful foot traffic generator, drawing daily repeat buyers who buy high-margin lighters and drinks on every visit. Now let us examine the single most lucrative item in the entire convenience store universe: fresh brewed coffee. A standard cup of fresh coffee costs the station owner approximately 23 cents in total direct cost, which includes the roasted coffee beans, the paper cup, the plastic lid, and the cardboard heat sleeve. That same cup of coffee sells at the counter for anywhere between $3 and $5 depending on the market. That represents a gross margin of over 90%. Even after accounting for high-end espresso machine leasing, electricity, and discarded stale pots, the net profit margin on commercial coffee hovers around 40%. Let us contrast the unit economics of a standard vehicle fill-up against a single cup of coffee. A driver pulls up and fills their tank with 12 gallons of gasoline at $3.11 per gallon. The total transaction revenue is $37.32. The station's gross fuel margin on that entire 12-gallon transaction is roughly 30 cents per gallon, or $3.60 total. Credit card processing fees instantly slice off 82 cents. Operational labor, utility overhead, and forecourt maintenance consume another $2.40. The final net profit remaining in the station owner's pocket from that entire $37 fuel purchase is somewhere between 40 and 60 cents. Now look at the driver who walks inside the store and buys a $4 cup of brewed coffee. That single, simple $4 transaction produces more direct net profit for the station owner than pumping 12 full gallons of gasoline into an SUV. This single financial truth explains why industry megachains like Wawa, Sheetz, and Casey's have spent the last 2 decades aggressively transforming their locations into full-scale fresh food restaurants. Casey's, headquartered in Iowa, now operates one of the largest fresh pizza chains in the United States by store count, running fully staffed kitchens inside their gas stations. These visionary operators realized long ago that fresh food and specialty coffee are the actual business. Gasoline is just the flashing billboard that pulls drivers off the highway. Top-tier gas station operators do not stop at coffee and packaged snacks. They turn every square foot of their commercial footprint into a high-margin ancillary revenue engine. One of the absolute highest margin additions an operator can build on a forecourt is an automated drive-through car wash. A modern, fully automated tunnel wash operates with virtually zero ongoing labor costs. Once the capital equipment is installed, the gross profit margins on a $10 or $15 car wash routinely exceed 50 to 60%. Furthermore, smart operators have implemented monthly subscription membership programs, charging drivers a flat $25 or $35 a month for unlimited car washes. This transforms an unpredictable, weather-dependent service into a steady, recurring monthly cash flow stream that cushions the business during economic downturns. Inside the store, an automated teller machine or ATM earns the operator a guaranteed cash commission on every single cash withdrawal, typically ranging from $1 to $2 per transaction. The ATM requires zero employee labor, zero physical inventory, and minimal floor space, essentially generating pure passive rental income from foot traffic. State lottery terminals provide another steady revenue pillar. In states where convenience stores are licensed to sell lottery tickets, the operator earns a base commission of 5 to 6% on every ticket sold. But the true strategic value of a lottery terminal is foot traffic. When national jackpots cross hundreds of millions of dollars, lines of hopeful players spill out the front door, buying high-margin drinks, snacks, and tobacco items while waiting to purchase their tickets. If a station gets lucky and sells a winning major jackpot ticket, the resulting local media coverage generates a documented surge in foot traffic and sales that can last for months. Forward-thinking station operators are also capitalizing on the electric vehicle transition by installing DC fast chargers on their properties. A standard Level 2 commercial charger costs around $3,500 in hardware, plus another $2,500 for electrical installation. However, a commercial DC fast charger, capable of adding 80% battery charge in 20 to 40 minutes, requires between $35,000 and $140,000 in hardware alone, plus an additional $20,000 to $80,000 in high-voltage electrical infrastructure upgrades. Fortunately for operators, federal infrastructure grants such as the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program cover up to 80% of eligible installation costs along designated highway corridors. But the primary economic driver for adding EV chargers is not simply selling electricity, it is dwell time. While a gasoline driver spends 3 minutes on the forecourt and leaves, an electric vehicle driver is parked at your station for 30 minutes. That extended dwell time translates into sitting inside your climate-controlled store, ordering hot-prepared food, drinking premium coffee, and using high-speed Wi-Fi, creating the single most profitable retail customer visit a gas station can capture. Now we must confront the darkest, most terrifying aspect of owning a gas station, the hidden operational nightmare that keeps owners awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. Buried directly beneath your customers' feet are thousands of gallons of toxic, carcinogenic petroleum products stored in steel or fiberglass underground tanks. If a tank, structural failure, or line breach occurs, the resulting environmental liability can instantly wipe out your life savings and force you into corporate bankruptcy. The Environmental Protection Agency mandates that all underground storage tank systems utilize double-walled construction, essentially a tank inside a tank, equipped with continuous interstitial monitoring sensors designed to detect the microscopic presence of fuel between the inner and outer walls. Operators are required to install electronic automatic tank gauging systems, high-tech vapor recovery equipment, and statistical inventory reconciliation software that cross-references daily retail sales against tank delivery volumes to flag unexplained fuel losses as small as a fraction of a gallon per day. Maintaining total regulatory compliance requires relentless capital expenditure. A basic electronic leak detection system for a standard 3-tank station costs between $3,000 and $8,000. Upgrading older steel tanks with cathodic corrosion protection costs between $10,000 and $48,000. Replacing an aging tank system entirely easily escalates into hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the true existential threat is what happens when a leak breaches containment and contaminates the surrounding soil and groundwater. As of recent federal reporting, the EPA has recorded over 583,000 confirmed releases from underground storage tank systems across the United States. Today, more than 54,000 contaminated sites are still awaiting full environmental remediation. The nationwide average cleanup cost for a single contaminated gas station site sits at approximately $154,000, and that is merely the baseline average. If toxic fuel migrates into local groundwater aquifers, which supply drinking water for nearly half of the American population, the remediation bill routinely skyrockets into millions of dollars. Groundwater cleanup requires drilling deep monitoring wells, installing complex industrial pump-and-treat filtration systems, and funding mandatory quarterly laboratory testing that must continue for decades under strict court supervision. Here is the critical legal trap that catches unwary commercial real estate buyers. When you purchase fee-simple title to a gas station property, you potentially inherit all pre-existing environmental liabilities that occurred under previous owners. Soil contamination caused by a leaking tank 20 years ago becomes your legal and financial responsibility the moment your name goes on the deed. Conducting exhaustive Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments prior to closing a transaction is not an optional expense. It is an absolute survival requirement. Even a clean Phase 2 environmental report is no absolute guarantee. Some toxic plumes are simply impossible to detect until thousands of tons of dirt are excavated during a tank replacement. Strip away the brand name, the gourmet coffee program, the automated car wash, and the fresh food kitchen. The single most decisive factor that determines whether a gas station prints steady profits or collapses into bankruptcy is its precise physical location on a map. A gas station situated on a high-density highway exit carrying 50,000 vehicles per day operates in a fundamentally different universe than a station tucked inside a quiet residential neighborhood street. In retail energy, volume dictates everything. High vehicle volume drives high pump traffic. High pump traffic drives foot traffic into the store, and high foot traffic generates massive high-margin merchandise sales. Professional commercial real estate developers evaluate 5 critical spatial factors before acquiring dirt for a gas station site. First is average daily traffic, or ADT. State departments of transportation publish official vehicle count data for primary commercial corridors. A site positioned along an arterial road carrying 30,000 to 50,000 vehicles per day commands a massive valuation premium compared to a site seeing only 5,000 vehicles, because your baseline customer funnel is 10 times larger every single hour. Second is site access and ingress geometry. How easy is it for a driver traveling at 45 miles per hour to make a seamless turn into your forecourt? If the city installs a solid concrete median down the center of the road that prevents drivers from making a left turn into your property, your customer capture rate instantly drops by 50%. Commuters will rarely execute a risky U-turn at the next intersection just to buy gasoline or coffee. If ingress is inconvenient, they simply drive to the next station. Third is corner orientation at signalized intersections. Corner properties positioned at major traffic lights are gold mines. Red lights force approaching traffic to decelerate and come to a complete stop directly in front of your large price board. That forced pause gives drivers time to make an impulse decision, check their fuel gauge, and execute a turn into your parking lot as soon as the light turns green. Mid-block locations on high-speed commercial strips enjoy no such deceleration buffer and capture significantly less impulse traffic. Fourth is competition density. How many competing gas stations are operating within a 1 to 3 mile radius? In an oversaturated commercial market where 4 stations occupy all 4 corners of an intersection, you are not merely splitting customer volume, you are completely destroying profit margins as operators engage in suicidal price wars to defend their gallon throughput. Fifth is surrounding anchor traffic generators. A gas station positioned adjacent to an interstate highway on-ramp, a massive Amazon distribution center, a major suburban high school, or a dense cluster of fast food drive-thrus benefits from natural, highly predictable commuter patterns. Commuters pulling out of residential neighborhoods at 7 in the morning pass your station on their way to the highway, creating a captive, daily repeating audience for fresh coffee, breakfast sandwiches, and fuel. Get the site geometry right. and even mediocre store management can generate a solid living. Get the location wrong, and no amount of operational brilliance will ever fix the balance sheet. Let us now perform a comprehensive financial dissection of a real-world, mid-sized suburban branded gas station pumping 100,000 gallons of fuel per month. Let us trace every single dollar of gross revenue, gross profit, operational expense, and net income to reveal the true bottom-line reality. Our sample station pumps exactly 100,000 gallons of unleaded fuel per month at an average retail pump price of $3.11 per gallon. That generates $311,000 in gross monthly fuel revenue. After paying the wholesale fuel distributor, the station retains a gross fuel margin of 30 cents per gallon, producing $30,000 in gross fuel profit. Inside the convenience store, the station generates $150,000 in monthly merchandise sales. Operating at an average inside gross margin of 35%, the store generates $52,500 in gross merchandise profit. Ancillary services, including an automated car wash and ATM commissions, contribute an additional $4,500 in pure gross profit. Combining fuel, store merchandise, and ancillary services brings the property's total gross monthly profit to $87,000 on $465,500 in total top-line monthly revenue. Now, let us examine the brutal operational expense stack required to keep this location running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Payroll for a 20-person store staff, including cashier wages, store manager salary, payroll taxes, and workers' compensation insurance consumes $18,500 per month. Credit card processing fees across fuel and store transactions swallow $8,619. Utility bills dominated by high-voltage walk-in beer refrigeration units running continuously and canopy lighting night after night cost $6,200. Equipment maintenance reserves for dispenser calibration and cooler compressor repairs consume $3,800. Commercial property insurance and specialized environmental pollution coverage cost $2,400. Local property taxes and municipal business licenses require $1,800. Store inventory, spoilage, damage, and retail theft consume $1,200. Total monthly operational expenses accumulate to $42,519. Subtracting those operating expenses from $87,000 in gross profit leaves an operating income of $44,481 per month. Now comes capital structure. The operator must pay $25,000 per month in debt service on their commercial property loan, along with $8,500 in monthly equipment depreciation reserves. After paying the bank mortgage and accounting for depreciation, the final net operating income settling into the owner's bank account drops to exactly $10,981 per month. Think deeply about that final figure. On $465,500 in total gross monthly revenue, less than $11,000 flows to the bottom line as net profit. That represents a net profit margin of under 2.5%. And here is the horrifying structural secret hidden inside those operating figures. If this gas station's inside store merchandise sales were to suddenly vanish, if drivers stopped buying coffee, drinks, and snacks, leaving only fuel sales behind, the $30,000 in gross fuel profit would fail to cover the station's $42,519 in basic operational expenses. The station would hemorrhage over $12,500 in cold cash every single month simply by keeping the fuel pumps open. Pumping gasoline loses cash. The convenience store keeps the lights on. When you strip away the bright canopy lights, the high-tech dispensers, and the massive top-line revenue numbers, what is a gas station really worth to an independent entrepreneur? A well-located, professionally operated suburban gas station, pumping solid fuel volume and running a high-margin fresh food store will produce a net personal income for an independent owner ranging between $100,000 and $5 $100,000 per year. The massive spread between those two numbers illustrates how dramatically location, ownership structure, labor control, and inside merchandise margins alter financial reality. In a stellar year with high vehicle traffic, stable wholesale fuel prices, strong coffee sales, zero mechanical equipment breakdowns, and clean environmental compliance, a top-tier suburban station can easily clear $200,000 in net owner distributions on $3 to $4 million in top-line sales. In a catastrophic year marked by a localized price war with a newly built megachain across the street, a major underground turbine pump failure, a sudden spike in wholesale rack prices that cannot be passed to consumers, or an EPA environmental leak investigation, that exact same gas station can bleed cash or barely break even. The financial swing between a good year and a catastrophic year can easily exceed $150,000. That is the intense volatility you are taking on when you acquire a gas station. The operators who truly build generational wealth in this industry are not the ones who are obsessively focused on selling fuel. They are the sophisticated retail operators who master three core principles. First, they recognize that fuel is merely an expensive advertisement designed to secure customer attention. Second, they treat their convenience store as a high-margin specialty restaurant that happens to have pumps outside. Third, they realize that while site location sets the absolute ceiling of what a property can achieve, daily operational execution dictates whether you hit that ceiling or fall into bankruptcy. The next time you pull off the highway to fill your vehicle's tank, look past the metal dispenser screen. Look at the massive footprint of the fresh coffee station. Look at whether there is an automated car wash bay operating in the back. Look at the DC fast chargers installed near the perimeter curb. Look at the length of the line at the fresh food counter. Because what you are actually standing inside is not a gas station at all. It is a brilliant, high-margin retail machine that uses $4 cups of coffee to pay the mortgage and $3 gallons of gasoline to fill the parking lot.